Yeah, we have discussed the physical dimension of the self, the biological blueprint with regards to our traits, characteristics, and even our view of ourselves, and focused on the biological development. Now, from heredity, we also have discussed about prenatal development. Yan. And now we'll be focusing on the influences of our physical development. Starting with the family. Being the first social group, it forms a crucial foundation of our development, including our physical self. Aside from factors of heredity, our family is also primarily responsible for how we take care of our bodies. Excuse me po. Our nutrition, sustenance. Excuse me po. And it's established by what we eat in our home. So sometimes, sobrang healthy tayo dahil sa dami ng preparation ng pagkain na nasa bahay natin. And sometimes naman, walay. It is dependent on the status of the family. So as we grow older, we become part of a larger social group. No, pagdating mo na ng preschool age, lumalaki na yung social group mo. Sa social group mo, nandiyan na yung mga classmates mo sa school or yung mga churchmates, mga kapitbahay, mga kalaro, nandun na. And because we are engaged in other individual, we become more conscious of our physical appearance. Yeah. We begin to take note of our height, weight, facial features. Minsan nagpapatangkaran pa tayo ng mga kasama natin, ng mga kalaro natin. We start being conscious of our appearance, especially now, during the period of adolescence. Kaya, tuwan-tuwa tayo pag nakikita natin yung transformation ng itsura natin from LM, no, hanggang sa ngayong college. Ako nawala. Ayan. So, one aspect of beauty is body type. So, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin last time, pag-uusapan din natin ito, no? Yung perception ng mga tao tungkol sa kanilang mga katawan. The media has portrayed yung mga payat as the ideal body type for women at yung mga maskulado naman para sa mga lalaki. Kaya kayo, adolescents, you indulge in activities that would help you achieve that ideal type of body. For some, having a healthy lifestyle, eating the right food, engaging in exercises are the steps in achieving the ideal body. Pero alam din natin na noong mga unang panahon ay hindi yung mga payat ang ideal body. No, gusto nila yung medyo may chubbiness ng konti. No, halimbawa yung malaki yung balakang because it symbolizes fertility naman para sa mga women. Okay, so how do we achieve physical well-being? There's nothing wrong with enhancing our physical self. No? Kung nag-exercise kayo, that's good. Kung kumakain tayo ng tama, that's good. No? Kung natutulog tayo ng tamang oras, maganda yan sa ating katawan. However, when we focus too much on the physical beauty, nakakalimutan mo na ibang mga bagay. So how do we take care of ourselves and our body? So here are some of the tips that could help you achieve yung physical well-being. Number 1, eat healthy. We need to have right combination of food to ensure health and sustenance. So yung tamang pagkain, huwag kulang at huwag din namang sobra. Kailan ka dapat kumain? E di pag gutom. Kailan ka dapat huminto? Pag busog na. Hindi yung busog ka na kain ka pa ng kain. Okay? Next, healthy lifestyle. We have to embrace it. Okay, tayo pa naman mga Pilipino, ang hilig nating uminom. Di ba? Umiinom tayo pag malungkot, pag masaya, at sa kung ano-ano pang dahilan. So avoid drinking. Maging yung smoking dati, sa studies, ang mga lalaki lang yung nag-engage sa drinking and smoking. Ngayon, lumiliit na yung gap between male and female pagdating sa smoking and drinking. At alam natin, alam na ninyo na itong drinking and smoking would lead to unhealthy habit and of course would also lead to illnesses and diseases. Nako, sa panahon ngayon na kailangan mataas ang immune system natin, you have to avoid all of this. So instead, engage yourself in physical activities such as walking, running, going to the gym. Okay, that would also contribute to a healthier body. Right hygiene. You have to take care of your hygiene. Grooming. No? Kahit na malamig, maligo. No? Kahit na hindi ka face-to-face with your classmates, so maganda rin na nakaligo ka pag humatid ka ng klase, di ba? Oh, ano pa? Confidence in yourself is the best makeup. No? Sometimes we have to make the most of what we have because that's the blessings from God. Diba? Iyan ang binigay sa iyo ng Diyos na itsura, i-enhance mo na lang, i-improve mo sa sarili mo. At the best way to enhance it is to develop self-confidence. Being secure in ourselves, embracing positive outlook towards various situations and problems, and loving and accepting who we are will surely result in an optimal physical well-being. Kapag komportable ka sa katawan mo, komportable ka sa iyong sarili, then it would be a lot better. Okay? So, ganon. So, okay na tayo dyan. So now, we will move on to the sexual dimension of the self. So at the end of this, you're expected to discuss and elaborate concepts associated with sexual self, including sex and gender. Identify factors that contribute to one's sexual development and explain how one can manifest responsible sexual behavior. Okay, agree or disagree? So katulad ng dati, type in your answers. Okay, let's start. A or D? We cannot control sexual urges. A or D? Ayan, so all of you disagree. And tama naman. Sexual urges are part of our system. However, it can be managed. Okay? At pag hindi mo na ma-manage ang sexual urges mo, then there's something wrong. So you have to ask or seek for help. Next. Our sexuality is purely biological. Agree or disagree? Ayan. So later on, we will see kung tama ang inyong perception that sexuality is purely biological. Okay? Third, sexual orientation embody cognitive, affective, and behavioral domain. Agree or disagree? Sexual orientation lang, kasama pa yung cognitive, the way you think, affective, the way you feel or behavior, your actions. Okay, so most of you, all of you answered agree. Next, we are born with sexuality. Agree or disagree? All of you agreed, no? So we are born not only with the sexual organ, with our sexuality as well. And last number, sex and gender are the same. Agree or disagree? Disagree. So most of you, all of you disagree. Okay? So let's now discuss this. Yeah. A vital aspect of one's identity is, of course, the sexual self. And we give importance to this because at your age, ito yung period na ine-explore natin yung ating sexuality. Kaya nga meron tayong bahagi dito sa understanding the self that is focused on the development of our sexuality. It encompasses biological, physical, emotional, and social domains. Yung sexual self natin ay hindi lang ito biological purely. Meron din itong emotional and social dimension. If we're going to look at the hierarchy of needs, di ba? Kasama sa hierarchy, basic needs natin yung food, shelter, yan. Yun yung tinatawag natin ng mga basic needs natin. At ang mga secondary needs natin, yung prestige, no, yung power, etc. Yung mga meta needs. And then we have the tertiary needs. Ito naman yung katulad ng ating sexual urge. So hindi siya purely physical kasi you can achieve this, no, even without touching your body. It is not purely psychological because syempre meron itong physical aspect. No? Hindi din siya purely social kasi you can even have it even if you're alone. Yeah. While it is initially rooted in distinguishing physical attribute, di ba, pagkapanganak sa atin, dinidetermine ng doktor kung tayo ay lalaki o babae based sa ating sexual organ, body transformations and development of secondary sexual characteristic during adolescence would eventually trigger physiological responses leading to belief and behavior associated with sex. Inom lang ako ng gamot. Yan. It is during the stage of adolescence that sexual curiosity is often at its peak. Tulad ninyo, with adolescents engaging in sexual activity as a result of biological and sociocultural forces. Further, the stage sets the tone for gender orientation and adolescent adapt. Thus, it is important to be aware of one's sexuality, thoughts, behavior in order to make responsible choices concerning one's sexual self. Okay, so siyempre pagkapanganak pa lang sa atin, yung genital features natin ang isa ng indicator, no, kung ano ang ating biological sex. One, sexuality and gender orientation. Okay, most of the time, one, sexuality and gender orientation are generally the same. However, biological sex and gender orientation are two different things. Okay, so sige nga, magtanong nga tayo. What's the difference between sex and gender? Anyone would like to answer? Difference. Okay, sige, Nikisha.
Rinig po ako.
Yes.
Yung sex po, sir, yun po yung biological sex natin. Tsaka po, ano po yun, considered lang po siya as two gender, female and male po. And yung gender naman, categorized po siya by maraming category po. For example na lang po is yung LGBTQ and QI++ po. Tapos po,
Okay. Sige, tuloy.
tapos po sir, yung yung difference po nila is yung gender po sir, is yung identity mismo ng isang tao. Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other answer or response? What's the difference between sex and gender? Okay, so sabi ni Enrico, ay, okay, sige. Okay, so Honorio, please, what's the difference? Marvin,
Sir,
go.
yung sa sex po, ano daw po siya po yung parang, yun po yung main body na yung pang-physical. Then
Okay.
yung gender daw po is the imaginary body.
Imaginary body. Okay. Thank you very much, Marvin. Anyone? NL? Anything? Any other responses from our classmates? Si Juan Luis Miguel.
Hello po sir.
Yes, good morning. What's your idea of the difference between sex and gender?
For me po, yung sex po, dun po nagre-refer yung yung characteristics po ng isang tao, yung physical characteristics po. Meanwhile po
Okay.
yung gender po, yun po yung identity po ng isang tao. Kumbaga, kung ano po yung tingin nila sa sarili nila. Kunwari po, for example po, men and women po, ganun.
Okay, thank you very much, Juan Luis. Okay, so let's now differentiate itong sex and gender. Yung biological sex, this is one's assignment upon birth and dependent on the physical feature of the person. Ibig sabihin, ito yung assigned sa ating pagkapanganak. Assigned ng DNA natin, ng mga chromosomes. Yun yung sex. And it goes beyond biological domains and it's both personal and social construct. At gender naman is known to be socially created roles, personality traits, attitude, behavior, and values attributed for men and women, which also includes the relative power and influence of each, indicating that gender is relational and refers not simply to women and men, but to the relationship between them. Thus, gender is anchored on societal beliefs and norms. So pag sinabi natin sex, this is more of physiological, anatomical characteristic of an individual based sa ating sexual organ. Yan yung sex. Okay? And then, yung gender naman is based on the roles that we play in our society. Okay? And since roles yan, marami tayong pwede maging role. So, iba ang sex and gender. Diba? Okay? Humans, alam na natin ito, yung pinag-usapan natin last time, na ang baliktad lang to. Yung X and X, yung female, and X and Y, yung male. Okay? So, ang nagko-contribute sa gender or sex ng baby or ng fetus ay yung male sex organ na X and Y. So, medyo malaking typo error to. Tapos, since ang kino-contribute lang naman ng babae ay X, sex chromosomes, pag nag-contribute ang male ng isa pang sex chromosome, then female siya. Okay, so ang nagde-determine ng magiging sex ng baby ay yung sperm cell. Okay? Yan. Tapos, meron tayong iba't ibang mga abnormalities pagdating dito sa chromosomes na to kasi meron mga pagkakataon X chromosomes lang, yung kanyang sex chromosomes. Okay, so yan yung tinatawag naman natin, X and O, bale. Klinefelter syndrome. Okay, or tapos meron din tayong XYY. Okay, at meron ding XXYY syndrome. And meron pang triple X syndrome. Okay, so these are only determined through genome sequencing. Okay, so ngayon na kayo ay nandiyan na sa adolescence, it's very important for you to understand ano ba ang sex. No? Kasi when we talk about sex, we are seeing it as bad, dirty, or something that should not and never be talked about, particularly in your families. Diba? Hindi dapat pinag-uusapan. Yan yung idea ng maraming mga Pilipino. But it should be talked about para magkaroon tayo ng tamang information about it. And of course, awkward siya pag-usapan. No? Kaya hindi tayo nagtatanong sa ating mga magulang tungkol dito. Sometimes, saan tayo nagtatanong? Sa mga kabarkada, sa mga sunog baga. So, ang nangyayari, maling information yung nakukuha natin. And yan, an adolescent is likely to experience sexual urges. It's normal because we are all sexual beings. We become more sensitive to sexual stimuli and we feel sexual arousal. So alam na natin ito, no? In men, nagkakaroon ng tinatawag na penile erection. Okay, so women naman, lubrication is the likely response, but not all. No? If sexual arousal is satisfied through sexual intercourse, men would experience ejaculation, while women would reach orgasm. So meron tayong mga stages of normal sexual activity. So nag-start yan sa desire, and then excitement, and then plateau, and then orgasm, and then resolution. Yan. So ang mga lalaki nakaka-experience ng refractory period or the period of rest after ejaculation. And it is likely to be longer in men, no? Unlike sa women, no, pagdating ng desire, excitement, plateau, orgasm, pwede or capable sa tinatawag na multiple orgasm because shorter ang refractory period after intercourse. And these bodily sensations are normal and typical in any sexual activity since hormones produced within the body trigger these physiological responses. These sensations are part of the normal sexual response. So kapag merong something wrong dito sa sexual responses cycle na ito, then that would be considered as sexual disorder. No? Anong mga sample nun? For example, wala kang excitement. Yan. So merong yung sa DSM tinatawag na desire disorder. Okay? Hindi ka makapag-maintain. So yung iba hindi makapag-erect sa mga lalaki, no? ED naman, erectile dysfunction or disorder naman yung tawag doon. Meron din naman painful, no? Painful, ang tawag naman doon ay genitopelvic disorder. Dating tinatawag na vaginismus or ano nga yung dating term dyan? Nakalimutan ko na yung dating term. Okay? And then if you are unable to reach orgasm, so meron tayo tinatawag na delayed orgasm. Okay? So ibig sabihin, pagka nagkakaroon ka ng problema doon sa mga stages na yon, then that could be considered as sexual disorder. And most of the time, hindi naman siya physical lang. Meron din siyang psychological aspect. So, very important yung pagpapacheck sa mga doktor. No? Meron tayong mga urologists that is focused on that. No? And yun yung kanilang expertise. Okay? So, wag mahihiyang magtanong. No, siguro sa ngayon, wala pa kayong masyadong problema. Pero eventually, when you get older, yan, probably, you will experience that. Okay? When adolescents feel sexual urge, they are likely to engage in sexual activities that would satisfy those urges. However, the kind of sexual activity they engage may vary. Kaya nga, iba-iba rin ang forms ng sexual activity. Hindi lang ito yung coitus o yung sexual intercourse. Ano-ano ang mga forms of sexual activities? Okay? Kadalasan sa mga adolescents, yung panonood o pagbabasa ng mga pornographic materials, engaging in kissing and petting, although meron itong mga medical benefits, no, sabi ng mga professionals, masturbation, including ang mga benefits niya includes stress relief, better sleep, improved self-esteem, enhanced body image, and it is better alternative for sexual intercourse, which may result to pregnancy or getting sexually transmitted diseases. So, syempre, depende rin ito sa ano ba tawag ito? Sa dalas. Okay, so if you are engaging in this more than 3 times a day, then there's something wrong. No? 3 times a week would be considered normal by others. No? But of course, it also has something to do with your personal and religious belief. No? Kasi isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit we feel guilty about feeling urges is because of our religious beliefs. Okay, now, our sexuality is dependent on the physical features and genitals. Most of the time, one's sexuality and gender orientation are generally the same. However, yung biological sex and gender orientation are two different things. So nabanggit na natin na yung sex, ito yung assigned at birth and dependent sa physical feature. Yung gender, learned, or ito yung tinatawag natin na socially constructed. Ito ay merong expectation from the society. As social construct, gender is known to be socially created roles, personality traits, attitudes. Kaya nga di ba nung mga bata kayo, ikaw, kababae mong tao, ganyan ka. Or ikaw, kalalaki mong tao, ganyan ka. Because merong expected behavior sa mga lalaki at sa mga babae. There are values attributed for men and women. Nandiyan din yung yung stereotype na it's okay for men na kumbaga maka-experience ng premarital sex but it's not okay for women. Di ba? So, yung double standard na sinasabi natin. Okay? So, yan yung difference now. Ano-ano ba mga gender roles? These are societal expectations of how men and women should act. Everyone has a basic idea of how men and women should act and behave. Men are assumed to be strong and dominant, while women are perceived to be submissive and demure. However, gender and biological sex are not always the same. Okay, so a person may have been born a man but assume womanly traits and behave like a woman, no? While a woman can behave like a man. This is an aspect of sexual orientation. Further, one sexual orientation manifests itself in the relationship. A guy who is attracted to girls is considered heterosexual, while someone who's attracted to the same sex is considered homosexual. Okay? Hetero and homo. Sexual identity. So ito na yung SOG, diba? Sexual orientation and gender identity expression. Yun yung SOG. Underlie the concept of self. We express our sexuality through individuality. our beliefs and behavioral lifestyle. Kung sinasabi natin ang sex ay male and female, sa Tagalog, kasarian. Ang gender, nandiyan yung LGBTQIA+, ibig sabihin there are more than 6 or 5, no? Meron tayong 206 plus na genders. Kaya nga, LGBTQIA++ pa yan. It is important to highlight our sexual expression and become more responsible in doing it. Yan naman yung gender orientation natin. This will also translate to our beliefs about sex, gender, and behavior. We also take note that our behavior in various situations would entail consequences. So we need to realize what are the effects of such actions and how can we regulate our own behavior, including our sexual behavior. Okay? So how do we manage our sex? Ayan. I'd like to show you. Teka lang, medyo. Stop ko lang muna ito. Mali, wait lang. Wait lang, nawawala ang aking lecture. No, like that. Yun. Ayan. I'd like to show you this slide. Yan, ito yung tinatawag natin na gender bread. We used to identify ourselves as dichotomy, no, male and female lang. Okay, but this gender bread would teach us no, kung gaano ka-complex ang gender. Okay? So gender is one of the things everyone thinks they understand, but most people don't. Gender is not binary. It's not either or. In many cases, it's both and a bit of this and a dash of that, di ba? So ito yung mag-guide sa atin kung ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng ating gender. So dito pala makikita niyo na kung gaano nakadami ang gender. Sometimes it has something to do with the identity, with attraction, with expression, with sex. Okay? So sex is biological. So we are made to believe that ano yan, dalawa lang yan. No, yung male and female. But meron na tayo tinatawag na intersexual. So ito yung mga individuals having both genitals, no? Yung mga hermaphrodites. And then, in terms of gender orientation, ito yung sexual attraction or intimate sexual relationship with others. Sumasagot sa tanong na, who am I attracted to? Or who do I love? So marami yan. So meron tayong tinatawag na heterosexual, you're attracted to the opposite sex. homosexual, attracted to the same sex, bisexual, attracted to male and female, meron ding asexual, not attracted to any, and pansexual, kahit sino pwede. Okay, so those are the sexual attraction part. And then we have the gender identity. Ito yung experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth. Okay, so who am I ang sinasagot na tanong nito. Yan. Ano bang gender identity mo? Are you a man or a woman? Or, meron tayo tinatawag na two-spirited, transgender, and agender. Absence of, no. So, walang gender. Yung transgender, gusto niya yung opposite ng biological sex niya, yung kanyang maging gender. And then we have sexual expression or gender expression. Paano nila ini-express yung kanilang identity through their appearance, dress, and behavior. So meron tayong femininity. And how feminine are you? Masculinity. No? Gaano ka ka-masculine or both? Yung tinatawag natin na androgynous. Having both characteristics of feminine and masculine. Yan yung ating gender breadth. Okay? So, to continue, it is very important for us to understand the consequences of our actions. No? Because, sabi nga, lahat ng mga ginagawa natin, meron itong consequences sa atin. Sexual intercourse na tinatawag din natin na copulation, or sa iba, ito ay tinatawag din na ano ang tawag yan? Intromission is the reproductive act wherein the male and male organ or the penis enters the female's reproductive tract or the vagina. So sexual intercourse siya. And marami sa mga teenager engage in sexual intercourse because of curiosity, okay, and most would be overwhelmed by the situation. Most teenagers who have sex with their partners often rationalize. No, binibigay nila ng dahilan that they love each other and they are ready to be committed to each other. However, if a woman is fertile during the time of intercourse, pregnancy is likely to occur and will last approximately 9 months before birth of the child. Having a child entails big responsibility and should not merely be a consequence of an impulsive moment. So we have to be responsible in our action to prevent yung iba't ibang mga problema. So one of the problem would be early pregnancy. There are physical risks, no, pagka early pregnancy. Halimbawa, 16 years old ka pa lang, yung katawan mo ay hindi pa ready para magbuntis. So ano-ano mga risk? Miscarriage or pagkunan, emotional stress, health risk, no, for both mother and infant. Tsaka yung psychological aspect, you are not prepared for it. Hindi ka pa ready para dito. So anong result? Since 16 years old or even younger, you will be dropped out of school, alienation, and other similar disruption. Pregnancy do not only affect female. Males are also burdened by the responsibility. So hindi lang yung pag-aalaga, yung responsibility for the whole family na, no? Kahit na hindi pa kayo kasal kasi responsibilidad na yan. And may also face the same problems as his partner. So bukod din, meron din tayong tinatawag ng mga sexually transmitted disease. While most of them can be treated and cured, it may have long-term consequences on one's health. Okay, so ang mga sexually transmitted disease may be passed on through exchange of body fluid or genital contact. Among the common diseases are syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and genital warts. Symptoms of this sexually transmitted disease include burning sensation during urination, warts, sores in the genital, mouth area, pus, abnormal smelly discharge, genital irritation, and painful bowel movement. Okay, so although merong tayong mga doktor na eksperto pagdating sa mga STD, mas maganda yung hindi ka na magkaroon nito. There are cases where these diseases may affect one's reproductive function and worse, it may result to death. At ang isa sa pinakamalala ay ang HIV, no, Human Immunodeficiency Virus. It is a virus that can be transmitted anally, orally, or vaginal sex with an infected person, as well as through breast milk during childbirth and by coming into contact with the blood of an HIV positive person. So it started in the early 1980s, no, late 70s. Ito dati ay tinatawag na homosexual disease dahil ang mga naunang nagkaroon ng case na ganito ay mga homosexual. But they changed it because hindi lang naman mga homosexual ang nagkakaroon nito. It can affect both male and female. If it is untreated, HIV can lead to AIDS. No? So ibig sabihin, kapag nandun ka pa lang sa HIV stage, there is still a possibility na ma-cure ka pa. However, if it led to AIDS, then mahirap na. Wala na yun. Sabi nga nila, death sentence na yun. Papahabain na lang ang buhay. Which comprises or compromises the immune system and puts the person at risk of illness and death. In its early stages, HIV has no symptom. Hindi mo makikita kung may problema ba o wala. Kasi katulad din natin, normal pa rin. Once the illness has progressed, the first symptom may include fever, rashes, and sores. In its final stage, variety of illnesses na yan, including pneumonia and cancer. So there's no cure for HIV and AIDS. No? Yung advancement na sinasabi ko, very few yung nagkakaroon ng chance na mag-cure sa HIV. No? Pero there are already evidences of it. However, mas maganda pa rin yung wala. Diba? So in the study that we conducted, there are still college students. No? I think nasa 15% of those we surveyed still believe na may cure ang AIDS. At 25% had ng mga college students in Intramuros, yung sinurvey natin, nagkaroon na ng sexual experience, okay? Sexual intercourse. At karamihan doon ay unplanned and unprotected. Okay? So, yun ay based sa actual survey. So we have to take care of ourselves. So paano ba natin ito ma-acquire? Prevalent among individuals who engage in unprotected sex with multiple partners. So sa ngayon, medyo bumaba na, pero yung cases natin ng AIDS, no, consistent pa rin kahit na merong pandemya. Irresponsible sexual behavior often result in consequences that have significant impact in people's lives and futures. Aside from health risk associated with sexually transmitted disease, it may also ruin relationship, create a negative stigma against people with STD, and disrupt school and employment. Therefore, it is important that adolescents should make responsible decisions regarding their sexuality and sexual behavior. So how do we do that? Number one, respect your own body. This would mean taking care of oneself, body, and avoiding activity that undermine one's worth and respect. Maturity in thoughts. Hindi dahil sa gusto mo, gagawin mo na. Be objective, rational, and calm. No, instead na hayaan natin yung emotion natin ang manguna sa atin. Be guided with our own personal beliefs and values. We have to be grounded on our personal principle and self-worth. And be future-oriented. Instead of focusing on the now, let's weigh yung mga pros and cons. And if you have your boyfriend or girlfriend now, you have to talk about this and you have to agree when is the proper time for you to do it. Okay? So don't be swept with your emotion because it would entail your future. Ayan. Okay? Yeah. So do you have question with regards dun sa ating discussion? No, I'm sure meron kayong mga tanong. Kaya I'm giving you the time to ask question now. With regards doon sa sexuality, sexually transmitted disease, may tanong ba? Clarification? Mukhang kasing tamlay niyo ang panahon na. O kung nahihiya kayo, pwede nyo namang i-type in ang inyong mga tanong para masagot natin. Sometimes kasi yung mga misinformation, yung akala natin na tama, yun ay nagiging guide natin. Okay, so walang tanong? Malinaw ba? Okay, go, Jibril.
Gusto ko lang po itanong po yung major difference po ng sexual identity and gender, sexual orientation and gender identity po.
Yan. Yung sexual orientation and gender identity, actually wala naman siyang difference. Balikan natin yung ating gender breadth. Yung expression kasi, ano to, parang how do you show your sexuality? Kasi ano yan, di ba, may matigas or malambot. Gender expression yun. No? Pwede naman na ikaw ay ang definition kasi ng gender expression is the way a person expresses their gender identity. No? So, yan, sa pamamagitan ng kanilang appearance, halimbawa, ang sinusuot mo, okay, o yung pagkilos mo, minsan yung paglalakad, yan, makikita mo kung boyish o hindi. While, yung gender identity natin, no, ito naman ay tumutukoy doon sa internal and individual experience of gender. No? Meron kang internal experience, no? Halimbawa, ikaw ay lalaki pero sa pakiramdam mo hindi ka dapat lalaki. No? So how do you express it? Yun na yung gender expression. Yung identity mo is more on psychological. Yung expression mo is behavioral. Yan. So behavioral yung expression, identity is more of psychological. Kaya nga ang sinasagot ng tanong na identity, sino ba ako? While ang expression naman ay yung action mo na, yung behavior mo na, paano mo ipinapakita yung nararamdaman mo. Okay? So yun yung difference ng expression and identity. Kaya parang sinabi ko parang hindi naman masyadong different kasi ano sila attached silang dalawa. Thank you very much. Any other? Ayan, mukhang wala ng tanong. Okay, so ito pa. Depende sa kung sino, no? Kapag ka ang babae ang nagtitake ng pills, ito ba yung contraceptive pill? Jonathan, contraceptive pill ba ito? O yung mga hormonal pill? No, kasi yung contraceptive pill, prevention ito ng pregnancy sa mga babae. Ang tendency nito pagka ito ay ininom ng mga babae, kumakapal yung lining ng uterus. Ibig sabihin, hindi makakapasok ang mga sperm sa uterus and therefore, it prevents pregnancy. Sa mga lalaki naman, pag ito ang tinake ninyo, since meron itong hormone, no, it would regulate your hormone. So anong mangyayari doon? Magkakaroon ng change sa yung physical appearance. No? Pero meron kasi itong tinatawag natin na progesterone. Estrogen, pag ito yung tinake mo, meron kasi tayong mga synthetic estrogen. Yung mga lalaki, pag tinake yung estrogen, magiging feminine yung iyong facial feature. Okay? Magkakaroon ng enlargement of the breast. Yan. Kaya yung iba yun yung tinitake. Okay? Now, yung contraceptive pill, yung sa birth control naman, sa mga babae, pag ito yung tinitake, merong ilang mga babae na meron ditong negative na side effect. No? Halimbawa, nahihilo sila o kaya may time na sumasakit yung ulo. So you have to also select yung contraceptive pill na babagay dun sa iyong katawan. Okay? Ano pa ang tanong? Anyone who would like to share their personal experience with regard to sa mga na-discuss natin? Wala. Wala pang may personal experience. Siyempre, hindi naman ako naniniwala doon.
Amen.
Okay. Natawa ko si Jonathan. So we are only 25 now, no? Siguro dahil sa talagang sa ibang mga lugar ay dahil sa bagyong Julina ay naapektuhan. But please tell them to watch the video dun sa ating Blackboard, no? Para makita din nila yung discussion natin ngayon. Okay, so I'm going to see you again on Monday, but don't forget, on Friday, this Friday na, yung ating assessment. Okay, pero huwag kayo masyado mag-worry kasi 5% lang naman yun ng total grade ninyo. Sige, Nikisha.
Sir, yung sa module paper 1 po, deadline po niya ngayon pero po nakalagay doon is September 15.
Yes,
pero
I
po
moved.
lumalabas. Ay, po, thank you po.
Hindi ko pa yata nabago. Pero na-move ko naman na yan at kahit na nakalagay doon na submitted late, hindi ko naman kinoconsider yung late na nakalagay doon. I'm still going to grade it at the maximum grade. Go, Christian.
Sir, saan pa po
Go.
pwede mag-resubmit ng file ng Module 1 paper? Kasi maling file po yun na submit dun sa submission bin po.
Oh. Baka makalimutan ko yan. Pwede naman yata ang resubmit eh. Teka lang, check ko. At if ever na hindi ko matanggal yung Christian, yung una mong pinasa, siguro i-PM mo na lang sa akin yan.
Sa messenger po.
Messenger mo na lang.
Sige po. Thank you, sir.
O kaya dun sa Teams, sa ating Teams, pwede rin doon.
Okay po, sir.
So, be careful ha. Sa module 2, hindi ko na i-ano yan. Ngayon lang module 1 ko consider ko yung mga wrong submission. Okay, so I hope you be careful in submitting your papers. Any other? Okay, so